The problem is that the police just aren't doing their job of protecting us from criminals, or at least not doing it well enough. I looked at the rate at which burglaries are solved. So 5% across England and Wales, 5% of burglaries were solved last year, down from 9.4% in 2015. And in London, it's even worse. Only 3.8% of burglaries solved in London. Why are the police not doing a better job of solving crimes like burglaries? I think in part it's because they're too busy policing our tweets and not policing our streets. Why? Because they're just deluged with all this diversity training. They're taught that they need to protect the feelings of these disadvantaged identity groups, groups like Stonewall, Gendered Intelligence, Mermaids, bombarding them with this highly partisan, politicised training. And they think that their job is to go out and record instances of politically incorrect speech and behaviour on Twitter and Facebook. And if you call up and you say, I've been burgled, or my car's been broken into, or my child just got mugged at knife point, you'll best get a crime reference number. That's the issue. That's the problem. And this is just a distraction, I think, from the real issue. Lots that I could come back on that, but before I do, James, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's clear that there's a loss of trust with the police for a lot of reasons, some of which Toby said. There's crime rates have been going up, but also there are specific communities that have lost trust with the police and the Metropolitan Police because of racism, the disproportionate stop and search of black people. We've had the Macpherson report was over 20 years ago, found that the Met was institutionally racist, and Casey's had this big report and has found the same thing again. But I think we should, rather than arguing over who is lobbying the police more and this idea that they're spending too much time on tweets or whatever, we should take this as an opportunity that if the Met is going to be fundamentally overhauled in a similar way to the Royal Ulster Constabulary was overhauled to become the Northern Ireland Police Force, then we have a chance to remake policing in a way that would actually serve the needs of people in London and that would restore trust. So then you start looking at things that people want, which is community policing. They want to have some kind of community oversight of the policing that is done, and also the integrating of not just seeing police as and crime as totally separate from other social issues, it being integrated into expanding youth centre provision, mental health support, looking at colleges for kids. I think we should take this as an opportunity. Let's start from scratch. If we were starting from scratch, how would we construct a system that served everybody in London far better? And I think let's start doing that now.
Yeah, and just to pick up on that point, I would say actually some of these problems are not just specific to the Met. I mean, there's other police forces in the UK that are on, for example, special measures. So I'm very keen that I don't just make this a specific London issue. Get in touch with me about your local police force as well and tell me your thoughts. Do you see this then as an opportunity to basically rip it all up and start again?
Well, no, I see it as an opportunity to get the police to focus on their core mission, which should be protecting the public from crime. I don't think that making the police responsible for, providing youth services to young people, to engaging in social work. I mean, if they can't get the basics right, if they can't...
I'm not suggesting the police should do social work, but if we're looking at policing and you have cut youth centres, I'm not saying the police should be running youth centres, but you can't look at these things in isolation. If you have cut youth centres, if you have cut mental health support, that's likely to be driving more crime. So we have an opportunity, I think, to take a step back and look a bit more holistically and see what are the drivers of crime, where are we seeing crime, where are we not seeing policing in the streets, and where are you seeing a big disconnect? Because there are communities that see a really big disconnect between them and the police, and you can't have policing by consent if people don't trust the police. So there's a problem of under-policing, which you spoke about. There's a problem of over-policing as well. And I think this is a great opportunity to just take a step back and say, if we were starting from scratch, what would we do? And then try to put those things forward.
But I think one of the reasons the public are losing confidence in the police is because more and more frequently, the police are turning up outside people's homes, sometimes in force, threatening people with arrest for doing things like misgendering a trans person on Twitter or using politically incorrect language. They're policing thought crimes rather than actual crimes. I mean, maybe not at the scale that people imagine, but we've done some...
Yeah, how much of that actually happened?
Well, we looked into this at the Free Speech Union, and we think something like 250,000 plus non-crime hate incidents have been recorded since 2014 in England and Wales alone. That's an average of about 65 a day. If the police are spending so much time investigating, recording non-crime hate incidents, which are by definition not crimes, usually some instance of politically incorrect behaviour that some community group or local activist has complained about,
what percentage,
that's what they're spending their time on.
What percentage is that of the total number of cases they're dealing with? I'm just trying...
It's a quarter of a million. It's far too many. I think you'd agree.
Well, it depends. I don't know. What's the total amount?
One of the reasons the police are spending so much time on policing people's thoughts is because of the training they receive. The Free Speech Union carried out some research a couple of weeks ago. We just published the report this week. It was written about in the Times yesterday. We asked all 41 police services in England and Wales what training you given to your police forces about the legal protections in place for free speech. And the answer was 78% of those who responded said they were either providing no training at all or an absolutely negligible amount. One line on Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights. Diversity training, by contrast, they were receiving in voluminous amounts, and that's why they're getting their priorities wrong when it comes to protecting free speech or protecting people's hurt feelings. And if they spent a little less time on that and a little more time on solving things like burglaries, knife crime, auto theft, I think the public confidence would soar.
I think part of the reason why burglary, auto theft, etc., aren't being dealt with so much is we've had 13 years of cuts to police forces, the numbers are lower, the budgets are lower. I think that's almost certainly a much larger cause of allocation of resources than some non-hate cases you're saying, or you think that the training they're getting is misordered. I think that's clearly the thing that we should be looking at, is its funding. And then you're talking about knife crime. That then goes back to the point that we also have to look at the broader things of cuts to youth services, mental health, the broader set of things which create reasonable communities that people want to live in and feel safe. And safety isn't only about about crime that could be committed to you. There's a perception of it, and there's a sense of community. And I think those things are where we should be starting. That's what we should be looking at when we're reimagining what we should do with the Met, how we should overhaul this institution, which has been so hugely criticised and people have lost trust with, rather than the questions of what training they get on diversity. Although that might, there might be questions there, I don't know, but I would think that they're probably more marginal than the other things.